Welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Chris, and Shad. What's going on, fellas?
What's good with y'all
What's
boys?
going on, man? Yes, sir.
Shit, not a whole lot. Another week. We actually just came off of the All-Star break in the NBA. It feels like we're really the only people talking about it, almost, aside from like First Take. In terms of the media reaction since, aside from negative stuff that came out on Sunday. But before we get into the NBA, one thing we do have to reference, Kellen Moore was officially hired as the New Orleans Saints head coach, as well as the Eagles. And Chris, if you want to get into it, hiring their OC, what's going on over there in Philly land?
I mean, congratulations to Kellen Moore. It was obvious he was going to leave. They already hinted to it. They can always say, he can't technically interview after the Super Bowl. We already knew what was going on, but happy for him. I hope he does well there. He got some fucking work to do, but that's good for him. I know you have people who will talk about why would you take the Saints job, bad job, this, that, and the third. But when you really think about it, it's only 32 of them jobs. Like, your ultimate goal, especially for him, is to be a head coach. I understand circumstances and fit might supersede certain things, but for him, he's been trying to be a head coach since he left being a coordinator at Dallas, and then he had to go take another coordinator job just for that coach to get fired, and they choose somebody else. So now he had to take another OC job, and so I can't fault him for taking the Saints job. That's that. And as far as the hiring of Kevin Patullo as offensive coordinator, the writing was on the wall. He's been there this entire time since Nick got there. He was our passing game coordinator, so he worked with every single one of the OCs that we did have. So it was kind of writings on the wall, and I feel like that's probably the best course of action as far as trying to keep some kind of continuity going. And in my opinion, what can you choose from? You got people throwing out, maybe hire Frank Wright. For what? I understand that was his mentor, but I just don't see the Eagles will even try to recycle certain stuff like that. So I have no problem with it. I'm just interested to see how it looks, but I think it's gonna be good for us.
Okay.
Well, I'll start with Kellen Moore in New Orleans, man. All I can say is I wish him the best. He's a young guy, 36, so even if this stint does not go well, he'll land on his feet somewhere. It's a big uphill battle in New Orleans that he'll have to figure out quickly. And we'll see the kind of leash that he has. It seems like I would think that he has a good amount of leash to be there at least a couple years to try to get the shit right cap wise, and then
all I was gonna say was that was one of the things that was floated around, that basically he wanted insurance before he took the job, that I need some time. Like, this not no turnaround type of ordeal. So what the time frame is, I don't know. That's just what was said.
Yeah. So hopefully it's like that for him, for his sake. But honestly, we'll see how it goes. And like you said, Chris, I think the best course of action, especially when you don't have that head coach that's an offensive coordinator, is to create that kind of farming system where if your OC gets poached, which happened in this case, that you have somebody next up ready to go that will keep that same continuity. Like I mentioned before we hopped on, like you saw the bad side of that, when Shane left, and it's like, okay, like we're trying to figure this shit out, and it didn't really work exactly how you wanted to. We see it a lot. Shit, it happened to us when Kyle left. We had no plan when Kyle Shanahan left. The Falcons, and we see what happened from that. So it's always good to have that system in place. Hopefully, y'all can pick up where y'all left off, but the player's still there, so it'll be.
And I think Kellen Moore is going to be good because, number one, it's Dennis Allen got his time, obviously to build a team and post Sean Payton, and it's not like we'll have to see, because obviously Sean Payton was locked in there since 2006, but we'll have to see. But the Saints haven't shown to be a team that's just recycling head coaches as well. Yeah. And the Saints have talent, obviously. We obviously saw how they started the season and how they ended the season. So, they've been a pretty good drafting team, for the most part. So as long he can still compete with, especially in the division. What Tampa Bay won with 9 wins or something like that this year. So get the offense right and try to keep Derek Carr healthy if they can. But while they work through the cap situation, obviously they can try to build something as well. But that remains to be seen. But for Kevin, he also worked with Nick Sirianni
Colts.
with the Colts too. So he does have a lot of history with them. So in terms of how things worked out last time, I mean, that was a part of that is probably the team is a little bit better this year or this past year, getting another year together just in general. Obviously Kellen Moore changed some things up, but I'm sure at that point in time that's also like kind of like a inflection point for the team where you did go to a Super Bowl, you did lose a Super Bowl. You're also trying to proceed another progression from your quarterback who you just paid. So putting a first-time play caller in that position may have been a little bit difficult. So, and then in the same thing in the defensive side. So that I think things will probably go better. They obviously know who they are now. They've obviously the pressure of winning a Super Bowl. Obviously, there's going to be pressure with returning to a Super Bowl, at least returning to a playoffs. But they'll be all right. I mean, they got enough talent on the team. They've drafted a bunch of defensive guys in the past couple years, so maybe they start adding some more additions on the offensive side that kind of helps. They're still trying to figure out with the wide receiver 3 position. Obviously, they've had multiple since Quez Watkins and Dotson's made some plays this year, but we'll see if they add somebody else behind Saquon. So, but yeah, we also got to get into Matt Stafford. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk, and we haven't touched too much on it. But do you guys think that he ends up getting traded this offseason, or what are y'all's feelings on the whole vibe between the Rams, Matt Stafford, and I guess his wife?
I mean, that's just it. It's like I don't want to say it's random, but to me, it's random as hell because you went from like you was literally a playoff team. Y'all was 2 plays away to be possibly an NFC Championship, and the all season start, and you go from we about to get rid of one of our best, longest one of our tenured receiver, even though he's getting up in age or whatever, and now we're gonna trade our quarterback. So it's almost like you just wiped the whole thing what you just did out, and now. I mean, I don't know. Do you believe in Jimmy G? I mean, is he the quarterback of the future? Like, I don't know where they're going. I don't know what their plan is. I don't know what the issue. It got to be an issue to me for them for this to all come out all of a sudden, and now we're gonna ship him to the Giants. It sounds like you got some problems. I don't know. I don't know. It's just strange to me, honestly. That's the word I'm looking for. Strange.
I mean, I like that kind of I like strange because I don't really, like you said, I don't really know what the plan is here. If you do get rid of Matt Stafford, if you do trade him away, you're not in a position to compete without him this season. So it's like, what are we trying to get accomplished exactly with this? And you don't really have an easy path to getting unless you go out, unless you are the ones that want to get Sam Darnold, unless you want to go down that route and kind of reset that way. But if you feel strongly in his, talents, but other than that, I don't really see why you need to do this right now. I mean, he just turned 37, Matt Stafford, but he clearly can still play. I think at least a couple more years of good play out of him. So maybe you're trying to trade him early before it gets to that, but at the same time, you don't really have your succession plan in place. So we'll see how these rumors continue to go, but it is a lot of noise out there about it. So it looks possible, at least. What are your take on this shot?
I don't know about just shipping him to the Giants, but it's hard for me to be like, you have no plan or no plan of succession, and you can't compete. When I mean, we can say what we want, but Jimmy has been to a Super Bowl. Jimmy has been to multiple NFC championships. So, the Raiders, obviously he didn't play well, or he wasn't great there, but injuries happen. That team, I mean, that team just in general is not great. So I don't know if that's maybe. I'm not saying that you move on with Jimmy Garoppolo as the complete future, like that's who you're running with for the next 5 years. But if you can get a first round pick, even if it's something where this year you take like a third and next year's first or something like that from a team that's like the Giants, who aren't who are like, we're not trying to give up whatever what are they, like the third pick or something like that. We're not trying to give a third pick for Matt Stafford. We'll give you a first round pick next year. We'll give you a third this year. You take a first, or we still have our first. We can get a top player, or we can trade back however we want to do it. I can see both that working out for both of them. And then from there, next year, maybe the Rams go forward with Jimmy Garoppolo, and then next year they have 2 first round picks to pick up a quarterback. I don't see anything wrong with that, to be honest.
But if you're the Giants, are you willing to give up your next year's pick? I mean, I guess the thought would be that you assume that if we get Matthew Stafford and we hit on our first round, we can be legit like contender.
I feel like, if in my opinion, if you look at the team itself just as a whole, the receivers are there, the running back is there. Maybe he's a rookie, so we'll see. Tyrone Tracy was good. I mean, he was a really good running back this past year. Solid. So, I mean, they have Devin Singletary. I don't know if he was a 1-year signing, but that's 2 solid running backs. You don't need a great one. In terms of the line, that'll be they have Andrew Thomas, and then free agency, and then the draft. But I mean, if you still to keep that first round pick, maybe you still do take Shedeur Sanders, and now you have Matthew Stafford and your succession plan. Then you still have your second round pick to get XYZ, maybe an offensive lineman. The defensive line, I mean, I talked about it I thought they were going to be better because of the defensive line. Defensive line is stacked. If Kayvon Thibodeau becomes anything, which he's a solid player. And then the DBs, they've got young DBs. So, I mean, I'm not saying, obviously they have the champs in their division. So that's a big, that throws a kind of a wrench in it. But at the same time, Matthew Stafford was also in a division with the 49ers, who continuously got there and still got to a Super Bowl. So
yeah, it's true.
Okay.
I mean, we're just talking about the Giants. Who knows if the Giants is real or not? But they kind of have to make a move. And do you want to put your maybe your last year as a GM and head coach on just a rookie quarterback? Maybe. I just don't think Jimmy Garoppolo's ass. I'm sorry. And Sean McVay could be like, Sean McVay, obviously, if he's seen what Kyle Shanahan did with this nigga, he like, bruh, okay. Like, I'm just saying.
I mean, yeah, we'll see.
I'm just saying. But with that being said, we can switch to the main season now and look into the NBA. Obviously, we just came off the All-Star break. A lot of conversation about All-Star. A lot of conversation from players, from media people. I don't even know where to begin, but what were you guys' thoughts on the entire weekend? And we can kind of take the conversation from
there. I mean, obviously, I guess the highlight of the weekend is clearly the dunk contest, which we talked about. That was one of the things that was like we used to look forward to growing up. Like, we used to look forward to seeing the dunk contest, seeing who's competing, what they're gonna pull out. You know what I'm saying? But then you got shit like what Chris Paul did. I mean, I get it. Hook about crook, but I mean, damn, like That was bad. That was insane to see. And I mean the format. We can talk about the format after a little later, but I mean I'm okay with the format per se. Maybe the teams need to be a little bit different how they set up at least the two of the lesser teams, but I kind of like the format a little bit, but it still needs some fucking work. I mean, my God. It still got some issues, but that was my biggest takeaway was shout out to Matt. He put on a show out there. Actually, all the contestants really they all put on a pretty good show for the dunk contest. Don't even do that because you were just saying that you thought they was doing pretty good, but yeah, that's my take on it.
It's a lot of
I won't
missed
say
dunks.
all of them.
A lot of
Okay,
missed
okay,
dunks.
the
That look,
finals,
They had
the
potentials. The
finals.
potentials.
they
They had
looked
some
like
good
they were about to
potentials.
get some good
Finals at
dunks, but they
least.
couldn't
Yeah.
connect. They couldn't connect them.
Man, Matas, if he that first one, I thought Matas was gonna snap, but he need to work on his vertical or something, cause
He could get hung. That shit would have been clean if he would have. Anyway,
that shit was nasty.
Yeah, that shit would have been clean. My take on the weekend, I didn't really watch any of the Friday night stuff like Celebrity Game and the Rising Stars stuff. But like you said, Chris, that shit Chris Paul did, like that was the first event for Saturday night, right? And it's been so much scrutiny about this night in general, and that's the first thing that you show people is you making a mockery of that whole skills challenge. You know, just tossing the ball. And it was said that they told Chris Paul that he could do that, and then kind of backed off of it after they heard and saw like the crowd reaction, which I do believe that's what happened. And it was like, if you do that, if you're the first ones up and you're doing that, and everybody else follows, you might as well get rid of the whole event. And in that case, if you're doing it like that, Chris Paul got to be smarter than that. Like you I don't know. That shit didn't make no kind of sense to me. 3-point contest is what it is. You can't really change too much about it, so it is what it is. But like you said, the dunk contest, Matt McClung, he pulled out some stuff. He pulled out some stuff that apparently like nobody else was ready for. And it was good to see. But it's like Sunday night, man. Kevin Hart really ruined that whole night. And I know like a lot of people on like the flagship shows, First Take, like on ESPN and even First Thing, like on Fox, they were like, oh, like we like Kevin Hart, so they're not going in on him like that they should be going in on him. He ruined that night. He made that night about him, and TNT's crew made it about themselves more than the actual play. And that was disappointing to see. Like Kevin Hart, none of his jokes landed. He was really just talking. It got to the point where I don't know if y'all saw the little cut of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander telling him like to shut the fuck up and let's roll, like let's play. It from a player standpoint, that had to be annoying. And I know like a lot of players really like Kevin Hart, but I don't think he should ever be allowed back as a as a host of this night again. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. So you had that going on, and then outside the arena, you had Draymond Green, and he's on the set talking with everybody. And this is what you're hearing as an audience on TV. You're hearing Draymond Green completely just bash the whole night from the beginning of it, saying that the Rising Stars players shouldn't be on this floor and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, like that's not the kind of image. While I do agree with you in some kind of sense, that's not the image you need to be. This is not your podcast. You're on TV. This is not what you need to be saying when people are trying to tune in to watch the product that you're speaking on. You cannot sit there and turn people away because you're saying like this is ridiculous. Like it makes zero. This is not your podcast, Draymond. You can't do something like that. That's terrible TV. It's terrible TV because you're basically telling everybody whatever you're about to watch shouldn't even matter. And I'll stop there. But that Kevin Hart and Draymond Green ruined that whole Sunday night experience. And that's not even getting into all the theatrics and stuff that took away from the actual gameplay. Like you said, Chris, I'm not gonna stop there, obviously. I did like the format, but I felt the games were too short. I felt 40 points was way too quick. And it was like, you're left wanting more from these players because they can score really quick. They can score pretty much at will. So I think that if they do try this again, don't be scared to go up in the points. Like, and that's kind of what led to all that filler crap being put in between the games and between it was 11-1, and they did like a 20-minute break.
Okay, so I
in the
thought,
middle of the
I ain't gonna
game.
lie, I thought I was tripping when I saw that shit. I'm like, is this a timeout? What
It
the
was
fuck
11-1.
going
That
on?
was the score. 11-1. They took a timeout and they did a bunch of other shit. It was like 20 minutes of real time before they got back on the court, played again.
Yeah,
Makes no sense.
I
Go
think
ahead,
Kevin
Sean.
Hart probably I really think he probably. I don't think. I mean, obviously he's probably a busy dude. I don't know how much they rehearsed that or did that. You know what I'm saying? So I think he probably was just out there ad libbing because they probably was all confused in terms of the breaks and stuff like that. I mean, it was a work in progress. It was the first time they were doing this, so I'm sure there was a little bit of confusion. But in terms of the game itself, I thought all the games were fine. Um, I did see some things on Twitter that was and I can't remember who it was, but it basically was we do all this stuff to talk about the All-Star game, but number one, people say that the All-Star game back in the 90s, blah blah blah, was super physical, whatever. If you go look at some of those scores, it was the same thing, 130 to 90, and so whatever. But it was what All-Star game was memorable? Really, what Pro Bowl game was memorable? You might remember moments, you remember MJ's last All-Star, or the one time
LeBron and
Kobe and
Kobe.
LeBron,
Yeah.
had that little moment. Kobe's last All-Star, what was it, Kobe or D Wade and Dirk, they did something special during the All-Star game. We remember the moments of the LeBron being back in Cleveland, and that also happened to be the top 75. And then, so aside from that, I think Magic came back, his last or during the All-Star after his incident. So Pro Bowl, who do y'all remember a single we remember the Sean Taylor hit.
Blew that punter up. How about it?
So all this focus is on this stuff. We remember the dunk contest for sure. And I would say, every year we talk about, I think the bigger issue with the dunk contest is there's not the names. I don't think the issue with the dunk contest has been the dunks per se, except, that Jericho Sims dunk was trash where he pulled out the 50. That shit was trash. Obviously they had some missed dunks this first, but the finals was, Castle and McClung. It was perfect. You couldn't ask for anything better. And if it was Ja Morant and Ant and they did the same dunks, there might be more buzz just because those are the names. But even we remember back to Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine. I wouldn't say that was the most. I know people knew that they could dunk, but I wouldn't say at the time people were like, "This is going to be the greatest dunk contest ever," or one of the greatest dunk contests ever. So I think that has more to do with the stars. So maybe the stars need to get back into it. But
I think that one was also just the extra dunks that happened in that particular.
Yeah, that one went forever.
That shit went forever. So it was all right, now this shit is different.
Yeah, that nigga Aaron Gordon went crazy. But it's just a lot of talk about nonsense about it's always hating on the game. Draymond talking about the game is boring. How is the game boring? What's boring about it? He says there's no creativity, people just shoot threes or whatever. And it's bro, he says there's no IQ in the game. And it's I can understand that to an extent, but there was never a point in time where the NBA was just all high IQ players. So it's just all this hating, and we got to get into it because I've been talking about it for a minute and it seems like everybody's starting to pick up on it. This nigga Ant talking about he don't want to be the face of the NBA or whatever. And I get what he's saying about he more so probably talking about what comes with it. LeBron, we know everything about LeBron to his kids, his daughters, whatever age she is, probably has 600 million followers, something on Instagram. It's crazy. And I get that, but that to me is the bigger issue with the NBA. Like even this the USA Gold stuff that just came out on Netflix, it's all about the older players. Like everything is about it's still trying to lean on LeBron, KD, Steph, and they like I said, that shit. The young guys not taking over and taking reins like they really should is I think the bigger issue. Completely, honestly.
I understand the standpoint of people arguing like you can't force him to be the face of the league. Like don't force him to do something that he don't want to do. Yada. But where I push back on that is like that is what you told us. Like that is what you told us, Anthony Edwards. I understand that you're only 23 and you were saying this stuff when you were 21, 22. I do get that. But at the same time, if people recognize your talent and want to push you forward, and I also get though people do build you up to break you down. I get that point. But at the same time, Anthony Edwards, you had the opportunity. This is a huge opportunity for not even just outside of basketball, outside off the basketball court. It's a huge opportunity that you just really don't care about. So it's like, where do you go from here? People see you doing like acting like this, and I think personally, like, and this is coming off of he was just in the news, well, in the Twitter news, I guess you could say, just a couple weeks ago from talking
Baby
about
mama,
baby mama, illegitimate child, all that other stuff. So I get that if you were trying to escape that kind of limelight, then yeah. But I mean, get your act together too. Like that should be like that should be a wake up call to be like, yo, if I turn this shit around, like I can really make like and sustain the next decade of being the face of the league. I think it's a huge opportunity that he's like just saying whatever. I just want to hoop and go home, like But at the same time, young man can make his own decisions, so it is what it is. But like it does put the league in a tough spot. It really does. And then we're talking about who the face of the league is, and it's like they want to push somebody so badly even before they're ready. Like, I get people saying Wemby. But I also like let's let it happen a little naturally a little bit. Like, let's let him play more than a season and a half. I do get that he's you see him as this awesome alien, like next up, and I think Greg Jennings made a great point, which is on first things first earlier this week, and he was talking about how kids like look up to like the faces of the league during those eras, right? And look up to him in a way that you want to emulate that, and he used it as a way to argue for Wemby, sorry. But I think it's him saying that, like people looking up and wanting to be that player. I think it kind of shies away from Wemby because like nobody can ever be Wemby. Like it's just people aren't born that way. It just isn't what it is. But you got a guy like Anthony Edwards who is 6'5" ish, and you like people can relate to that a little bit better. He's definitely more down to earth in today's world. So I think when you got a player like that, it's just easier to get behind, but it does suck that he doesn't want anything to part of it. But
in my opinion, also like when going to that point in terms of people wanting to be like him, I think more so like what he probably meant is like it was unachievable. So that's why people looked up to it because they felt it was like you didn't feel like necessarily you could fly like Mike or LeBron was some like freak specimen. But to that point, like Steph grew in terms of popularity because people felt like that because people think Steph is shorter smaller than he really is.
They do, yeah.
I think people really think but people that maybe not pay attention to basketball like that think Steph's like some 5'10", like my height or something like that. When in reality he's like 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". He's still a big dude. And but they see the 3-point shot and he's below the rim, which made him, more realistic, like achievable, which is why we've seen kind of the shift into terms of kids growing up and taking a three. But I also think that with that being said, like it benefited Steph that to his credit, he became super popular and was a little bit more was definitely more popular than Kevin Durant. But in NBA standpoint, he was kind of looked at as like the third wing. Like he did blow up and like he did have conversations like, can he compete with LeBron and whatnot? But LeBron was still always like the guy.
Yeah.
So imagine if people started looking more into Steph's life and even Kevin Durant's life, not to say anything about him, but obviously there's been some stuff that came out about like Steph Curry's wife that, in terms of the attention that she wanted. Like, imagine if that was expounded a little bit more, or when she said that the NBA was rigged. I mean, hey, because the Cavs won. That never got really talked about or picked up at all, picked up steam. Kevin Durant not being somebody that has like a family, not to say there's anything wrong with that, but if KD was really like how they look at LeBron, his life probably would have been looked into a little bit more. So I don't know. I think it's weird because nobody can really answer the question on why it shouldn't be Jason Tatum, aside from like he's just.
Well, they say he's boring. That's what they say, huh? They say his game isn't flashy, and it's like,
which I mean, I can kind of understand. He just gets buckets, and then
but it seems like it also
could be the
seems
best
like
player in
Jason
the
Tatum.
league.
It also seems like Jason Tatum don't even want. And you can speak on this too more, Chris. It also seems like Jason Tatum don't really care for it too much either. I mean, he clearly doesn't want his personal life looked into because he didn't even tell anybody that he had a baby on the way. Or who he's dating, which is very popular. So it's like it's just popping out. So I mean, it seems like he don't even want to. I don't know. What you think, Chris?
As far as the whole topic, I just feel like it just seems to me that they're just young and they want to do stuff that they should not be doing because they are in the spotlight. And things start to pop up. Well, like we talk about what Anthony Edwards in his situation, but at the same time, you don't want to be the face of the league, but you are the face of something. You the face of your franchise. Like you are the reason. What you're doing now, being as the face of your franchise, was getting you these endorsements. This is what getting you these commercials. So you already in the territory. I don't understand what's the ordeal of I don't want to be that when it's like you kind of are that. That's
Yeah.
why you who you are. That's why people know who you are. You are the face of a franchise. So the next step is obviously the league, but I'm not saying it's like the same, but I can't say it's too much of a huge gap of what's to be expected from a face of a franchise versus the face of the league. So that's how I look at it with him. Even with Ja, like they just young and they are very very young, and so like they still want to be with their friends. They still want to do what young people do at that age, and you can't do that being a professional. So I think that's why they're trying to stay in the background or say they don't want to. And as far as Jason Tatum, I mean, I just think it's just because he went to Boston Celtics. If he got drafted by the Lakers, it wouldn't be the same. That's just my take on that.
Honestly, I think it's still
I would say only reason why I say that, and you could argue with because of his dad, but if he had a better outcome, Lonzo would probably be a face of the league. But I'm saying maybe the popularity came from more of his dad, but I feel like it's Showtime for a reason as far as Lakers versus Celtics.
Well,
so that's why I say if he would have went there, it would have probably looked a little different, in my opinion.
I could possibly agree with that, but I would say it's because it's his dad. But then Magic in the initial press conference stamped him and said he was going to be the best player, best point guard in Laker history.
He did.
So by that, I would say yes. But I was thinking about it, and it's just kind of like it's really on some hating shit why I feel like Jason Tatum might, but like, do you think it could possibly be because people feel like maybe he never showed his personality, or maybe he's been like a little kind of reflecting others, like the moment we did it moment after the championship, they say he copied Kobe, holding the trophy, whatever the fuck they were saying, trying to say that he was just copying moments or he did the Kanye thing. And, so maybe people feel like where Ant is like dead ass authentic. He's straight Atlanta, like you know what I'm saying. Like he's authentically himself. Maybe people felt like Jason Tatum is not authentically himself, or maybe authentically himself is not really, I don't know. Maybe like you said, boring, quote unquote. So I think that I honestly was thinking about. I'm like, damn, that probably really like people just saying like he ain't being him. So like they just
And also, I feel like everybody else when they come into the league, as far as being like top picks, they're literally their franchise. As in, he came into the league, we had just got Kyrie, so it was supposed to be him, and then you got Gordon Hayward. Then we just drafted a number 3 overall the year before, and then as the years went by, the other people started to leave, but you still had like a Marcus Smart there, who is more of a face of the Celtics in general. Not obviously not the league, but he's more of a Celtics favorite in general. So like, I just feel like he was just buried beneath all that. Even though he was hooping, he was just buried beneath the other people. And now that he's here, it's just like, oh well, we moved on to the next.
And I do think Jason Tatum wants it. I'm not gonna lie. I think
so too.
Yeah, maybe he hasn't expressed it himself, but I do think, we obviously have heard the rumors of him. I mean, I guess it's really not a rumor because his own teammate really said it, but he kind of confirmed it. But he don't like Luka like that, or like he gets annoyed with Luka. And to me that's like reminiscent of LeBron when he came in, and like the rest of like Paul Pierce and them was kind of like,
yeah.
So, and I also think because at that point in time, like the league, obviously going back to LeBron, the league was kind of in a place, like a weird place because of Kobe and Shaq. They were kind of getting to a breaking up point. And then beyond that, the guy that was viewed as like the boring guy that was really could arguably be the best player in the league, Tim Duncan, who was going to be the guy to kind of take over because Kobe was going through his, legal issues and stuff like that as well. LeBron came in and took it over, but what would have happened if it wasn't LeBron? Because if you want to think back to that point, Carmelo was really a super fan favorite and still really is, but Carmelo also had the thug, I guess, image that they were putting on him. Yeah, AI, but I mean, I think AI. I think AI had a little bit more grace, like in terms of how he carried himself, that endeared him to other people. And then with him being like kind of like the Steph Curry, where he's little to in most people's eyes, when really he's still taller than a lot, most of the men. People felt that they could kind of be like him. So.
He was also in that tweener area, like between like the late '90s and early. Like, so he was like in between, like Jordan, Kobe,
and the next.
Yeah, so it was tough for him. He just really expected it from him.
Yeah, so I don't know. The NBA, somebody's got to take it over. Somebody's got to take maybe. And like I said in our chat, niggas gonna be mad when it's Cooper Flag. They gonna be so mad when it's Cooper Flag. They gonna be like, oh, Cooper Flag came in. They trying to get a white boy.
They gonna treat him like the girls treated
Caitlin Clark. Oh, they came in. Well, I think that I thought about that. That's a little different because they definitely had some people that want that shit, and that was a little different. But for sure, if Cooper Flag comes in and Cooper Flag starts going crazy and he starts kind of, people gonna be mad. I'm telling you right now, and I'm gonna be the one that's gonna be like, nah.
Nah, y'all ain't want it. Y'all ain't want it. Yeah. You just want to hoop and go home. You don't want it.
Exactly. Like this is but I mean, ultimately, like you said, yeah, facts. I don't want it. But ultimately, like you said, it's an opportunity, like a big opportunity that, it not only affects you, like you said, it puts everybody into a microscope in your family and your inner circle, but it also affects them in terms of if you want to talk about true generational wealth, like, look at the things that LeBron has been able to do in terms of his effect on his community, his family, I mean, his son, obviously, there's been much talk about his son being in pole position. People say that LeBron runs the NBA, basically. Look what Kobe, even through his trials and tribulations, has been able to do. Like Michael Jordan, I mean, has been retired since 20 plus years. And, the Jordans originally came out in the freaking 80s and it's still the number one shoe. Like,
you know what I feel like it is kind of, and I could be off base on this, but I don't think I am. I think they're taking this money for granted, and what I mean by that, because we see how much these guys are getting nowadays, and it's getting higher, higher and higher and higher. So they're getting this money just from playing basketball, and outside of it. When back in the day, you would get a pretty penny off endorsements. Like it made sense to really pursue them outside because like the money wasn't like how it is now. So I think that plays a little bit of a part in it too. It's like you get
but the money was still like it is now for the guys that's the face of franchise.
I hear you, but if you're getting a $350 million, $450 million contract off your first contract, it's like I could just do this and chill, and that's really why I feel like Anthony Edwards is in that mindset. He's like, I could just play basketball and chill. I get enough money as I'm set. Pretty much.
I get it. I get it, but I'm like, bro, like that shit's nasty.